Hey guys, it's Jennifer with Purple for Parents Indiana, and we are going to continue our series on exposing social emotional learning for what it is, which is implementing the critical race theory or critical theory into our schools and influencing your children to adopt a radical worldview. So we left off last time with a picture from this webinar called Cultural Competency, Leading Radical Change from the Indiana Department of Education, and we're going to dig a little deeper into this. Okay, so these are the IUPUI webinar facilitators, Dr. Tambra Jackson and Dr. Anela Teemet, and you can look them up, as we always encourage everyone to do your own research because we are really just hitting on just the basics here. But you can find a lot of information on these two women and the research and products that they have put out. So on the top is one of the research articles that was written by Tambra Jackson. Black Like Me, Female Pre-Service Teachers of Color on Learning to Teach for Social Justice with a Black Female Professor, Diversifying the United States Teacher Workforce. And if you pull up this article and read it, you will see that her whole basis for analysis is the critical theory, Marxist critical theory. And then down below is just a snip from Dr. Anela's bio that tells us that she actually coined the 6 standards for effective pedagogy, rely on both sociocultural and critical perspectives on teaching and learning. She was awarded 5 U.S. Department of Education grants focused on teacher quality. Says her current one was $2.75 million grant that is actually ongoing right now that supports ESL partnerships with 3 districts. And interestingly enough, I believe the Perry Township Schools and Avon Community Schools are part of Project Aware, which is the 10 schools in Indiana that are supposed to be building the sustainable model for all schools. And her work actually is also rooted in the critical theory or critical race theory. So here's a little bit from each one of them.
Get real about the racial injustices that have occurred in our school system. We have to get real about the social inequities that hold students and teachers back from maximizing their potential.
Okay, so the inequities that hold people back. Again, she has wrote extensively on the critical race theory in education.
We are building the capacity of school-based leadership teams. We're going to invite those leadership teams from different schools and different districts to come together and to work with us over an entire year, not a day, not a week, but an entire year of professional learning experiences that we try to create that help them acknowledge, recognize, and begin to think about how to dismantle inequities.
Okay, guys. So I had some situations today, so I'll apologize for the video going sideways there, but it's not really important. So if you heard her at the very end say to dismantle the systems or inequities that she views, again, these are critical race theorists that are influencing our education system. And from what I understand, the grants that she received is now they are training. They're in the middle of training hundreds of educators and administrators across our state. Okay, so here's another interesting one that is part of this leading radical change with cultural competencies. Kathleen King Thoris, and she is, I'm going to play a small snippet from her here in a minute, but specifically from her bio, she is recognized as an expert in culturally responsive and sustaining education, special and inclusive education, equity considerations in multi-tiered systems of support, and race and disability equity-oriented professional development. Okay, guys, that's your social emotional learning programs. So let's see what she has to say about this.
I want to just ground our work. We are critical, and it connects with what my colleagues were saying, Dr. Hayes and Dr. Kazembe, in asking the question, who benefits and who struggles in the status quo? And that, that goes back to Paulo Freire's work and other critical theorists, but that's at the center of our work. Another thing that you will find if you contact and engage with us is we are focused on transforming systems, not discrete technical improvements. And as you know, that's often been the recipe and the ask and the expectation of professional development and engagement with educators. We are focused on changing systems.
So she is saying right there that this is all grounded in critical theory, and they are focused on changing systems. So in case you are not aware, let's take a look at what critical theory is. Critical theory is a Marxist-inspired movement in social and a political philosophy originally associated with the work of the Frankfurt School. Okay, drawing particularly on the thought of Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud, critical theorists maintain that a primary goal of philosophy is to understand and to help overcome the social structures through which people are dominated and oppressed. Okay, I'm not sure how much more clear we need to be that social emotional learning is critical theory, the influence of critical theory on your children. And if you go to an administrator or a legislator, a superintendent, and have a conversation with them, and they start out by asking you to define critical theory or critical race theory, I would bet that they are only having you do that because they are looking for knowledge that you may not have so they can manipulate the way that you view this. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to turn that around on them. Start asking them what they believe critical race theory is or critical theory is. Okay, the two women from the beginning, Tambra Jackson and Ella Timent, or however you say her name, they run this Education for Liberation. You can find their Twitter page. It's pretty interesting if you want to go on there and kind of scroll through it. A guide for racial justice and abolitionist social and emotional learning. Again, in the first video that we did on this, we said, please make sure you do not allow them to separate the two because they work directly together. That social emotional learning is the cultural competencies. They work together, and it's all based on changing your children to understand the world through a critical theory Marxist viewpoint. Okay, here's another tweet from them. Recently, we witnessed an attack that shook Americans across the nation. Educators, please check out this resource explaining how to have a discussion with students about the recent riot that took place at the Capitol. So, apparently, the 6th was extremely traumatizing for them. I'll just leave that there. Let's see here. Oh, and let's not, I just want to make sure we get Christy Berger in here, who was the head of the Social Emotional Learning Program at Indiana Department of Education. She has led the whole thing from the beginning. I know that she just moved on to Center Grove School, so beware. But she had a tweet that they retweeted out The ultimate goal of education is to develop all the skills, knowledge, and dispositions within a learner so they can access freedom for themselves. And she says, we are E4L, clap, clap. Okay, interestingly enough, I don't know if this rings a bell for you, but as soon as I saw this, I knew exactly what I thought. So they tweeted this out. Our family, community, and school engagement strand prepares school teams to engage all school stakeholders to make the school a more equitable environment, thereby improving learning. So if this looks familiar to you, it may be because it's very similar to the Castle social and emotional learning framework that all of our schools are going by.